Okay, I guess we'll seek a 10-minute game. I really wanted to do a higher time control for this speedrun, but nobody's... I want to find a game, so... There we go. 1,000. Okay. We're going with e4. Okay, e4, e5. And once again, I'm going to play an opening that I recommend to some beginners as a way of practicing getting all of your pieces out. I mean, I know it sounds very, very banal to say that. When you learn a very specific opening system, oftentimes the fundamentals get kind of buried beneath all of the theory that you learn. And that opening is the 4-knight Scotch. So you start by playing the 4 knights, knight c3, knight f6. And then you play d4, which is the Scotch. This is called the 4-knight Scotch. Now, it's not just one of those boring openings that beginners play. It's also an opening that's very popular at the highest level. And it's quite dangerous for black if black is not very precise with the theory. So we're not compromising on ambition. Bishop c5 is a well-known inaccuracy in this line. Who can tell me the reason why? And it's very important to go for this line without fearing certain responses that I'm going to talk about after the stream. And the move is knight takes e5. The move that I think a lot of people fear is bishop takes f2 check. And in general, this is a big reason why people don't go for this type of idea in many positions. But bishop takes f2, it turns out, is not only not scary, but essentially losing for black. And I'll talk about that after the game. Okay, pawn d4, forking back the minors. Yeah, and what's going to happen here is black has to choose which of these pieces to give away. What black should do, as many of you know, is go bishop d6. That is the traditional and the best response to this kind of idea. What a lot of people do here is they play bishop takes d4 kind of instinctively, and that's very bad because you don't want to give away the bishop this early in the game, and then the queen starts skewering the knight, and black could end up just losing the game there very quickly. Let's see how he reacts. Bishop b6. Okay, that's also not great because black is not even going to get a pawn for the for the fork. Okay, so d6. All right, so we have a choice here. We can take on d6. We can also be fancy. We can play a fancy move here that sets a little bit of a trap. Who can tell me what move I'm thinking about? I mean, anytime there's a standoff between the kings, between the queens and the kings are uncastled, you should be thinking about this idea when your opponent's pieces are not very well developed. Now, one way of thinking about this is that the queen is undefended by anything other than the king. So let's go bishop c4. If d takes e5, we play bishop takes f7 check. Now, this isn't just a cheap trap. We're also developing one of our pieces to a really good square, and he falls right into it. Bishop takes f7. If king takes f7, whoa, he's going right into it. Now, one thing you have to be very careful about is to make sure if the white king was on e2 here, if our king was on e2, we would fall right into bishop g4 check. But it's not, right? And that's the one thing you have to check when you essentially when you perform this combination. That was pretty one-sided 9-move game. The only thing I really have to talk about here is the moment where we took on e5. Thank you, Bismo Funyuns, for the prime. Now, reasons people are afraid to take on e5. One reason I've heard from some students is a move like queen f6, which looks like it forks the knight and the pawn. This fork is very easy to defend against with the prosaic knight f3. You can just drop the knight back. You could also go knight d3, although I like this move a little bit less. Even though it hits the bishop, it blocks our own bishop, and I feel like this... And it blocks the other bishop, so knight on d3 is quite awkward. Another reason is queen h4. People get scared of this move. And here we can either go g3, or we can go knight d3. Here, unfortunately, we can't go knight f3. I like the move g3 here. Queen has to come back, and then we can play knight f3 and fianchetto our bishop, since we've already gone g3. Okay, and the third reason is bishop takes f2 check. Thank you, Quadraspaki, for the prime. The thing to understand about this position is that white's king is temporarily weak. We are going to castle by hand. We're going to move the bishop out, go rook f1, king g1. Not a problem. Daniel Dan for the gift. On the other hand, what's not temporary is our control over the center and our development advantage. We're going to go d4. All of these checks are not scary. Queen f6 check, we just tuck our king back on g1. And what's going to happen is that, okay, black kind of has to drop the knight back. Now we start the process. Let's say bishop d3 or bishop c4. I would probably prefer bishop d3 just to solidify our center. Let's say black plays d6. Because if black plays knight f6 here, what very powerful move can we respond with? Yeah, e5 sends the knight back to g8. Which is why probably black will play d6, and then we play rook f1, king g1. And here's the thing, not only did we castle by hand, but the fact that the f-file is open is good for white. So bishop takes f2 actually did us a favor. And the reason it's good for white is because after bishop g5, the pressure on the knight becomes instantly unbearable. We're threatening bishop takes f6, destroying black's pawn cover. Thank you, Shogudan, for the 5. Really appreciate it. Understood? Thank you, ST Law Official. Man, lots of subs. Now, somebody mentioned one point I want to address, which is that on queen f6 check, king g1, isn't it the case that the rook on h1 is going to be hemmed in? And yes, it is the case, but we're going to get that rook out. Thank you, Chaos Shield. After knight g6, we can proceed with knight d5, forcing the queen back to d8. And, you know, there's no huge urgency to get the rook out of h1. It's not like it's necessary at this very moment, but if you wanted to get the rook out, you could again play bishop d3. Let's say black plays d6. Then if you wanted, you could play h3. Let's say black plays c6, chases our knight back, and then develops his own knight, and we can go king h2, and then rook f1. Yeah, we spent a couple of moves, so black wasted so many tempi moving back and forth that this is totally justified. And we still have the center, and we have everything we could possibly need here. Okay. What's going on? Okay, I thought people in the chat were worried about something. Oh, prime. Okay, nice. Yeah, definitely sub with prime. Knight takes e5, d4. Now, the proper way is bishop d6 to respond to this. D takes e5, bishop takes e5. And white is better. We have a pawn in the center. Black doesn't. We have a slight development advantage. This bishop on e5 is quite awkward. It can be attacked with the move f4 later. You rated NC17. Male Boo 420 and Anthor's all subbing with a prime. There we go. So this is just very, very pleasant for white. Cocky 16. Thank you for the prime. Amazing. Bishop b6 is the first mistake. It gives up a pawn for no compensation. And after d6, bishop c4 comes the second mistake. D takes c5. How should black play here? Well, he should go knight e7 and castle. I mean, at least limit the losses to a pawn. And of course, here he should go king e7. This is the last chance to stay in the game. Who can tell me a good move here for white? It's actually not so easy for white to play accurately in this position. There's a lot of tempting moves here, and some of them aren't as good as they look. White's best move is to sub with prime. Yeah, but let's say white's second best move. Well, knight d5 gives up the bishop. Bishop g5 check looks like it wins the game, but black can block with a knight, so this is not as impressive as it looks. Other attempts. Bishop takes g8 is fine, but then black can trade queens and then take on g8, and we got an endgame. Do we really want an endgame when the king is this weak? So what do we need to do here? We need to avoid the queen trade, and at the same time, we need to keep this bishop protected. So I really like the move queen f3. Queen h5 I like less because of knight f6 hitting the queen, and the queen has to stay anchored to the bishop. So you're probably going to have to go bishop g5 here, and this leads to some complications. Queen f3 I think eliminates all complications, because if black plays knight f6, you know, the simplest is to drop the bishop back and then castle, and you know, we're groovy here. We're in great shape. The king is stuck in the center. If black tries to castle by hand, he's not going to get very far, because we're stopping the king from getting to g8. So here we can go bishop g5 and then knight d5. This is really, really good. Okay. Cool. Of course, this loses on the spot.